Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR, and we are here having our first basketball episode. We are going to be talking hoops today. Normally, we talk all football all the time, but with the basketball season coming up, less than a month away, right? I guess
Oh
about
yeah,
a month away. Is
we're
it the
getting there.
6th that
We're getting
starts
there.
on November?
Yeah,
So about a month away, we are going to get some awesome basketball talk going this season. We're going to try to start with like each team a little bit. I don't think we'll get to every single team, but we'll try to go one at a time. Well, our first team that we have with us today is Burke from the Often Daunted podcast. It is the IU basketball podcast for Big Banter Sports. Burke, you want to go to introduce yourself and tell people where they can find the pod?
yeah. I'm Burke White. I host the Often Daunted podcast on this Big Banter network. You can find my podcast anywhere. I imagine that about 13 of 14 of these fan bases might not like it. I tend to be a little bit of a homer, but today, in the name of Big Ten Huddle, I put on my objective pants and I'm here to talk some basketball.
Hey, I tell people all the time, dude, it's like if you hate us, that just means that you want to come keep listening to us. Like if we ever have
Yeah.
SEC fans out there, you want to come listen to Big Ten talk, dude, go for it. Come grill us in the comments. I don't care. Like,
There
and
you
then guess
go.
what? We're gonna come back at you and let you know when we're right and you're wrong. So, all right, if you want a little friendly banter back and forth, come bring it. We'd love to do it. So, uh,
Absolutely.
we are brought to you by Big Banter Sports. Big Banter Sports. We have a team for every football team in the conference. We're working on basketball right now.
Even IU, even IU
Even
football.
the
Shout out to
LEO
the LEO
podcast.
podcast.
There we go. Yes. I think they're a little upset after the Maryland game, but I think
Oh
they're also
yeah.
happy.
Hey,
I was talking to
yeah,
one of
it's
them the other
it's
day.
bittersweet. It's
I was talking
bittersweet.
to one of them the other day, and their offensive coordinator got fired, and you would have thought Christmas happened.
Dude,
Like
ding dong, Walt is gone.
there we go. There we go. So, hey, if you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're listening to us on podcast, please do follow us and give us a rating. Even if you just want to give us like 4 stars, 3 stars, let us know. Give us a rating. We'd love to hear back from you on what you think of the podcast. It would really help us out. We're also on Rumble as well, and you can find us on social media platforms of Twitter and Instagram if you want to interact with us there as well. All right, let's get into it. Enough of that fluff. All right, so Burke, we have the Big Ten basketball expectations in 2023 to 2024. We're going to start with some IU talk, and then we'll get into some Big Ten talk. So, just super open-ended question here. What are fair, that's the key word here, what are fair expectations this season for Indiana?
Now, open-ended talk. I might give an open-ended answer because there seems to be 3 different possible expectations for this Indiana squad, as we know absolutely nothing about how these guys play together.
Yep.
Trace Jackson Davis, he was such a presence that he dictated the style of play. Everything went through him, which rightfully so,
Right.
because he was such a freaking monster that last year.
For sure.
And just a lot of questions on how this team's going to look. It's Woody's, I would call this his first year with his guys.
Mm-hmm.
And with him coming on to the program, wanting to play a more faster style, a more pro style, which just has all of Indiana fans just drooling. That being said, in the Big Ten, it tends to be whoever you're visiting, you're going to play their style, and then they're probably going to beat you with experience in that style. So, we don't really know what to expect at this point. There's because this might be the most talented roster Indiana's had, but we don't know that yet. We don't know how it works together.
Right. I was thinking back to the Tom Crean days and like how much talent he had on some of those teams, and even this one, it seems like you said, you don't know, but it seems more promising than even some of the best teams he had. Am I wrong?
If it's 100%, this, you guys can call this hyperbole. We are making a national title run if
all right,
we can hit on 100% of the potential. This squad has, now that counts as Kalel Ware finding a motor.
Yes,
which is the biggest question. And if we hit on 50% of the potential of this squad, and that's Malik Renew, by all measure, I mean, if you've seen a picture of his gains in the offseason, this guy looks like he has been dipped into a vat of gamma radiation, and he's ready to just take the floor.
Yep.
And like with his footwork from last season, his footwork was impeccable. The only problem with him is can he use that size to, bully back in the Big Ten? And in doing so, can he also cut down the fouls? Because 6.8 per 40 was far too many for last season. And especially because at this point, with Trace gone, with Jalen gone, he is the returning face of this program. I would say X and Trey are captains this year, but X was out all last season, and Trey Galloway, people just like to call him the glue guy, like to call him the program guy in the roster. But
Trey Galloway is one of my favorite players to watch in the Big Ten. And I know that's like a hot take, because obviously there are so many more stars, right? There's AJ Hogarth, there's, Zachy. There's so many more stars in the Big Ten. He's not a star, but just, man, you do not get the guys who go to a school because they love the school and they're going to, drop every single ounce of who they are into that team. The last guy I can remember, and I don't think Trey Galloway's on this guy's level yet, but the last guy that I can remember that was like that was in the Big Ten, was Aaron Kraft at Ohio State. The dude just, every single drop of sweat he had that game dripped onto that floor.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's Trey Galloway. Am I wrong?
And no, see, that's what he brought the first year, and that's about all he brought. But this guy has added a dimension to his game each offseason. Just 2 seasons ago, he was the worst 3-point shooter on the team at like 27%, I believe. And then this last season, he was the Big Ten leading 3-point converter. I think it was like 48%. And this guy just seems to be able to find an extra tool each offseason. And if he is able to somehow generate his shot and keep that like high percentage shooting, watch out. He's going to make a splash this year.
Now, is it fair to say that he is going to be starting with Xavier Johnson, the 1 and 2, right?
Yeah. Okay. That's what it looks like by all measure.
So we're looking at Xavier Johnson.
Backcourt is the problem. Backcourt is the problem right now. It looks a little light. That was going to
be my question, because you have the freshman Mbako that's coming in. Obviously, probably going to be the 3 or the 4. I would anticipate probably the 3, because Malik Renew will probably be the 4, correct?
See, that's even in question right now. We don't know any of this, because Mbako came here because he wants to play the 3.
Gotcha.
And he'll get every opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
The only problem is the potential speed that smaller 3s in the Big Ten would have, because he's the size of an NBA 3 all the way. But this kid's athleticism, his size, its strength is not going to be this freshman's issue.
Gotcha.
And as for the backcourt, it really is. We need to stay healthy. And we have to hope that Gabe Cupps can come in and subsidize as well as we'll get into the freshman in a bit. But Gabe Cupps absolutely needs to be a piece of this squad.
For sure. Now, I wanted to touch on one other person before we talked about the Big Ten as a whole, and it's probably one of the most intriguing, if not the most intriguing players. He's a transfer, and if you don't know who he is because he didn't play much last year, I get it, but Kel'el Ware from Oregon, correct? He obviously did not have the motor that was needed at Oregon, but he was a former 5-star, had a lot of talent coming in. Do you think Woody is the kind of coach who can really, bring him in and really drive him to take that next step to the player he needs to be?
Look at the guy Archie Miller brought in to save his job. Trace Jackson Davis. Trace Jackson Davis always had the skill. Mm-hmm. He had the touch around the rim. He had all this. He had the IQ. But Woody unlocked something in him. Mm-hmm. His time under Woodson, those games, like I would point to probably both Michigan games just first. His ability to win those through sheer will, which if you watch them, a lot of our wins this season was Trace just winning through sheer will and tenacity.
Right. Both Purdue wins as well.
And that was never the case before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, of course, it is different for fourth year compared to Khalil Ware in his sophomore season.
Right.
But if there's one guy that can do it, I mean, Woodson has given us the evidence in Trace Jackson Davis.
Yeah, for sure.
But I want to get back, because if anybody's listening to how I said national title, I bet they are pissed off. Guys, that is me talking and the max potential being hit, because this Indiana squad has two of its three highest recruits of all, like, since they've started tracking, since people have been getting paid off tracking these guys.
Right. So you're saying ceiling, obvious, if everything goes right, everything happens right, ceiling, national champion. What's the floor here? What do you think about, like, worst case scenario? Where do you think you are?
Now that ceiling is based on CJ Gunn hitting an appropriate sophomore jump, because we'll need him to relieve Trey.
Right.
Or, just absolutely play a role in this backcourt. Caleb Banks making a step in that. Caleb Banks is such a high motor. Mm-hmm. It's almost to a detriment for him last season, where he was almost moving too fast for his feet to stay under him.
Right.
And if he can somehow get the ball handling down a little more, I mean, everybody talks about the sophomore step. So I'm just, if a lot of our sophomores make that step, Malik Renew, CJ Gunn, Caleb Banks, and we can also just get the absolute best out of these newcomers. This is the most talented squad, the most set up for success, because even though Trace was a monster,
right,
we had a ceiling with the play style we played with him.
Yep.
That's
what I was going to bring up with Trace. I mean, obviously, every Hoosier fan loves Trace, right?
Oh, he's on the Mount Rushmore now.
Exactly.
He's leading like 14 different records now.
Exactly. But I think you hit the nail on the head. There was a certain play style you had to play with a guy like Trace on your team. Now if Trace was over at, say Duke or, Kentucky, where they have tons of 5-stars, then maybe you don't have to do that exact same play style. But for Trace, you had to play around him with the talent he had around him like that. And I think you're right that if you have some of this more talent, you aren't stuck in one play style, kind of like you were with Trace. And I think that's been the Big Ten's issue a lot of times, is they kind of have teams that get stuck in one play style. UConn last year showed that they could beat you in almost any way you wanted to play against them, right? It was the Big East teams that had the best success against them. But, like, pretty much any play style you had, UConn could match and UConn could beat you in, right?
Yo, absolutely. But, like, the problem with the Big Ten is I think whenever anybody experiments, whenever anybody looks to run, the rest of us just beat the hell out of them and tell them to quit it.
Yeah. And that's like that's the thing. Coaches like Chris Holtmann and Greg Gard and Brad Underwood, like, they don't want to try to experiment with that, because guess what? Those fan bases are rabid and want those guys out if they finish lower than 4th in the Big Ten.
Yeah, Wisconsin, sorry to them. Like, they truly will bring you down to their style of play and beat you with experience. Like, right. That's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, if you try to play anything else in Wisconsin, they're just not going to let you do it, No. So I guess this is a good lead into my other question I had about expectations, because we started with Indiana, and now we're getting into, like, the larger scope of the Big Ten. From you looking at it from the IU angle, are there any teams in the Big Ten who can kind of break this curse of not really performing in the tournament? Obviously, we're a very deep league. Obviously, there are a lot of good teams in it, but no, like, super great contenders. Are there any teams this season that you could see who could kind of break that mold and really get to, like, an Elite Eight, Final Four, maybe even the national championship?
Okay, since I already pitched the Indiana pipe dream, which, guys, I rationally think that we are 3 through 5. That's where I'm hoping, right there in the mix. That's I think a safe expectation for this squad,
and that's a good performance for the team too. Like,
yeah,
that's not
exactly. Bad. I'll hang. Yes, successful season. But as for who I think is going to make the squad, I mean, make the deep run in March, a Tom Izzo team with expectations is pretty. I mean, that's the Big Ten's greatest shot, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say too.
Because, I mean, if Purdue's not going to do it with Edie and Ivy, I don't know who. I don't know.
Well, and it's hard because I don't want to just spend the whole time crapping on Purdue. And Purdue fans,
you guys, Edie is a monster. Okay, yes. Edie is a monster. I hate on the national level. I just want to say I hate all the shine that Hunter Dickinson gets because he was not even the third best center in this. He wasn't the third best center. Cliff Amore, that dude muscled him so hard. Like all season, Cliff Amore was more impressive. And Zach Edey is the top of the mountain right now. He is a guy who dictates the style of play, and his style of play is dominate. I mean, luckily, Indiana had the answer twice last year. Right. So, I mean, as far as the overall standing expectations for me, I expect Purdue to be at the top because I don't expect anyone other than us to have another solution for that.
Right. And even IU this season, it's going to require a Kalel Ware. It's going to require some of these big men to have a TJD performance in order to beat Purdue. I mean, I'm with you, dude. Purdue, I look at them and I say, there's almost no way they don't win the Big Ten. It's going to take a Herculean effort from somebody else and some really bad luck for them to not win the Big Ten. But
absolutely.
I don't feel super confident with them in the tournament. Prove me wrong. Please do prove me wrong. I want a Big Ten team to do well in the tournament. But I just have to see it. It's been 3 really hard tournaments for Purdue fans to go through, and I feel you. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to dog you, but I have to see Matt Painter get far and do more. And if he's going to do it with anybody, it's got to be with Zach Edey. Those young guards need to do better with some ball control and need to be able to get up the court and give the ball to Edey without turning the ball over like they did in the tournament. So,
and a lot of that was freshman guards. And look at me in my objective pants, guys. I'm telling you, Purdue, those guys they deserve all the praise that they've been getting. They do.
Yeah.
So that's the last I'll. My younger brother's Alpha Sig at Purdue right now, and
You heard it here first on the Big Ten Huddle. An Indiana fan giving some praise to Purdue. So, anything can happen here. So, all right, let's move on to our next topic. So, if you didn't know, the Big Ten, they unveiled their 2023-2024 men's basketball broadcast schedule. They're one of the only conferences to unveil the whole thing. The SEC, the Big 12, they have only unveiled their conference. They haven't unveiled the broadcast schedules for everything. So, it's kind of hard to compare it, but Burke, what was kind of your reaction to thinking about watching Indiana on Peacock this year, right? A digital platform. What was your reaction?
I thought about starting a class action lawsuit against NBC Universal for extortion because Indiana Purdue is reaching a fever pitch, just with how heated each of these bouts are.
Right.
It's extortion. It's extortion on the largest corporate level, and I for one won't stand for it.
Yeah, no, for sure. There are some games on there, this football season, they've put some, kind of sleepy games on Peacock, right? They had Michigan versus ECU at the beginning of the season on there. So, obviously, Michigan fans are going to want to watch their team, but at the end of the day, is Michigan ECU really going to do that many numbers outside of Michigan fans? No, probably not. So obviously, you go put them on Peacock. But that's where I'm with you, dude, is there are some actual good games that are going to be on Peacock this year. Now, I already subscribed to Peacock because The Office is on there, and I love The Office. So you're not going to really hear any complaints from me about it. But I do understand people who, don't want 17 different subscription services signing up for Peacock. Do you think this is going to hurt the Big Ten's visibility at all or anything like that?
I mean, it does for anybody not in the state. It does for anybody not here invested with us, because like there isn't going to be recruits just turning on Peacock. They aren't going to turn on Peacock and see how crazy Assembly Hall is when Purdue rolls into town.
Right.
And be like, oh, maybe take a flyer on those guys.
Right. Well, and like, I don't have YouTube TV, but my in-laws do. And so when I go over to their house, I'm flipping around to different games and stuff like that. And that's going to be the hardest thing, is being able to like have all this going on social media, and somebody's like, oh, I got to find the IU, Purdue game. And it's like, well, where's it at? It's like, oh, I got to exit out of this. I got to go all the way over to my, Peacock app and then go in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how crazy some of the older IU fans are. Like younger IU fans know how crazy some of the older IU fans are.
Yeah.
How are they going to react to this when they find the news? There's no way they know that this is the case yet.
Yeah.
They will not know until they turn on NBC and don't see it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah. That was kind of my thing, was like, I really wish that NBC would have done kind of like a cross platform thing here for the first season. I really wish they would have done like it's going to be on NBC, but it's also going to be on Peacock. You can watch either one, but there's special footage on Peacock that you can see during the commercial, like give us some kind of incentive to watch Peacock.
It was the second highest rated game last season, and it's on Peacock this season.
Right. I mean, it'd be interesting to see the numbers. I'm sure it's going to break all kinds of.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure there's They found the way. This is the way. This is how you get every person in this state. They at least got Indiana's population on this one.
Right. So I was doing some digging a little bit. Like I said, SEC and the Big 12, they don't have their full numbers out yet. They have their conference numbers, but not their full numbers. And what was interesting to me is that the Big Ten, compared to the ACC, has more games on CBS. So even though they have more on Peacock, right? I mean, the ACC doesn't have any on Peacock. They have their ACC network and ESPN Plus. But the Big Ten actually has, from what I saw, at least right now in the planning stages, they have the most games on CBS out of any conference. And so it's like, it's almost like you kind of take it with your poison, right? It's like, oh, we're going to take the Peacock. That sucks. We don't want to do that. But like a lot more national exposure on CBS for maybe some of these other games. I think the worst thing is just IU Purdue,
Oh, the whole thing, it came right before the news of IU Kentucky resuming was broke. And I just immediately thought, okay, so since Cal bartered his way into having 2 home games and us having a neutral one at first at Lucas Oil.
Yep.
Since he did that, I wouldn't be surprised if it was on his own, like Cal's OnlyFans was where we have to broadcast that game. Like it's crazy, because that will be just as highly viewed, and probably more because of how much
having an OnlyFans. That's a picture I don't want in my head now, Burke.
I'll tell you what, if he's broadcasting the IU Kentucky game, I'm subscribing.
Okay, yeah, well, that's true.
I have to.
It'll probably be cheaper than Peacock, so what's 1 month subscription?
Yeah, I don't know. That guy is pretty full of himself.
Yeah. You go there, $20 a month. Oh man, all right. So moving on from there, we'll get away from Cal's OnlyFans.
Yeah, let's do that.
Move on to our final topic. So there's been a lot of talk about the freshmen out there, just kind of nationally, and it's always an interesting conversation to me, right? Like people put out these lists for like who are the best freshmen, and it's like, well, you literally have all these recruiting rankings to look at where they just got done ranking 600, 700, how many ever freshmen there are. So I guess let's get into this first before we give our top 5. What are your thoughts on the Indiana freshmen? There's 3 of them, right? There's Newton, Cups, and Baco. What are your thoughts on these Indiana freshmen this year coming into the season?
Let's start with Jakai. I am heartbroken for Jakai. He's rehabbing a knee injury right now. Right. Doesn't look too promising that he'll be able to get out there fairly soon for us, and he would have been a great addition right out of the gate. This kid has explosive play, and that it's just such a bummer because it happened just like the May before he was coming on campus, and
Yeah,
And
for
yeah,
sure.
and then as for Gabe Cupps, again, him and Braden Smith were both Mr. Basketball that 2022 year. Gabe
Hmm.
Cupps in Ohio. He will absolutely need him to play a role. Now, for the two, his shooting is highly touted. He's going to be able to shoot. Is he going to be able to make his shot in the Big Ten is the question.
Right.
But I mean, I'm hoping that CJ Gunn can answer that question as our shooter coming off the bench,
Hmm.
taking his next step. And then as for Mbako, I mean, um, I I've looked into this kid's game, but I got to tell you, I don't need to look into this kid's game because if you have a Duke decommit
Right.
who you win in a bidding war with Kansas, I don't need anything else. Like I don't need anything else. If these guys were both interested in him, both committed to getting him, yeah, I want him. I want that guy. And I mean, his frame again, he might be a natural four in college. He's trying to get ready for the NBA playing the three.
Right.
Um,
Well, and like you and I were talking before we were even on here, like the dude, it's more a question of his speed than his body type, right? I mean, the body's there.
oh
He
yeah.
is made for college basketball
Oh yeah.
already, especially coming into the Big Ten. Like that's what you need. You need somebody who has the body to withstand some of the punishment and some of the beating you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
get. So to me, that's like the most positive thing about him is like he's not one of these freshmen who comes in who's kind of long and lanky and is gonna get pushed around a little bit. Like no, the dude is he's strong and he's built well, so he's gonna be able to withstand at least in the off season, but possibly also the entire Big Ten season as well. Wouldn't you agree?
I mean, if this kid he came in to the roundtable interviews for Indiana's like institutional media day, and he
Right.
told everyone, I'm leaving next year. I'm
Wow.
out." Like he's like, he's gonna try to put enough on tape this season and bounce. So I mean, yeah, he would have to succeed at the three if that's the case, because our front court is so deep, so deep. Talking about Peyton Sparks,
Right.
this kid coming from Ball State, second team All MAC, but also a freshman. So hoping he gets a sophomore bump. That kid is a unit. I believe that Mike Woodson might have just brought him in as the Edie buffer.
Yeah.
Um, but this kid also produces around the rim, so it's exciting to see. But Mbako playing that three almost seems like even if it isn't naturally there yet, he'll be forced into that position because you would imagine that Kalel Ware was also sold a bill of goods coming here that, hey, if you have the motor, you're starting.
Right.
You are taking chunks of minutes and showing the NBA that you deserve to be a lottery pick that you are projected to be.
For sure. For sure. All right. Let's get into our top five freshmen here. I have my top five. You have your top five. I think what we'll do here is we'll just go back and forth. You give your five, I'll give my five. We'll go down. You want to start or you want me to start?
You know what? I'll start.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to start with potential freshman. This is the freshman, right?
Yes.
I think Price Sanford at number 5.
Where's he at?
Iowa.
Iowa.
You might know his brother, Peyton.
Yep.
If he's half the nuisance that his brother is, I think he's about the same size, if not bigger. He's going to be a problem. Sanford is my leading. Now that Dickinson is gone, now that New Jersey's point guard Paul Mulcahy is gone, Peyton Sanford is my odd-on favorite to be the Big Ten villain of the year.
Really?
So
well, and it would be appropriate for him to come from Iowa and do that, right?
Yeah, and it is just like I have a feeling that he's a lot like his brother because Iowa just puts like brothers out there.
Yeah,
they do. That's just what they do. So my barometer and my reason for picking him 5 is because I would have picked his brother at 5.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think Iowa is always a sneaky good team. And
absolutely.
In my mind, at least, they kind of have taken on a little bit of this villain mentality in the Big Ten. You know, obviously they're more offense than defense, so it's not like the scary, gonna hurt you villain. But they are kind of like this. We could beat you at any point in time because we're just gonna hang 100 on you type of thing.
Oh yeah, that's they live by the three, they die by the three. But they, to their credit, they are Mike Woodson's lone head to collect still.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And that's the thing. So, all right, my number 5 is Gavin Griffiths from Rutgers. People who listen to this podcast know that I am, I'm an Ohio State fan, but I have this strange affinity for Rutgers. It's been coming out all football season. It's bleeding into basketball now. The dude is just a really efficient scorer, and I feel like that is something that Rutgers was kind of missing last year that they really need to bring in. And Steve Pikiell, I think he's a good coach. I think he coaches defense really, really well. But I really like the idea of somebody coming in who is kind of offensively ready to bring and make a big impact for his team that kind of has this defensive mentality. Now, Rutgers did lose, a number of good players. What's the guard's name?
Mulcahy, Paul Mulcahy.
I don't know. I couldn't think of his last name.
Yeah.
Paul Mulcahy. They did lose him to the transfer portal. So
that dude was an all-time villain.
Yes, exactly. The headband gang, right? But I really feel like this is kind of a player that Steve Pikiell just really needs. And I don't know if he'll be starting right away. So that could be a little bit there, but I really just feel like this is a player that Steve Pikiell needs and could really help out the team in a lot of different ways. So, all right, I'll go ahead and give my 4, and then we'll go back to you. We'll just kind of snake style it, okay? All right, my number 4, and some of you might not like this because I've seen him really, really high on some boards, but bear with me for a minute, okay? Xavier Booker from Michigan State. All right, I think he's a great talent, okay? I think he is going to make a big impact this season. But I am a bit concerned with how late he did rise in the recruiting rankings. One of these guys that he wasn't always up there toward the top, but he kind of, just at the end of it really rose up there. He's a tremendous athlete. I mean, I watched some of his tapes and he just glides on the floor. He's a really, really good athlete to do that, but he's going to take a bit more time than I think some other guys would. And if there's any guy who can really take him and form him, it's Tom Izzo. So I think by the season's end, he's going to be a starter and he's going to be playing really, really well. I don't know if he's going to start at the beginning, but like I said, I think he's going to be really good. I'm just not quite as high on him as some other people are. So, all right, who's your number 4, Burke?
My number 4 is going to be Scotty Middleton for the Buckeyes. I mean, sounds like the kid can shoot the hell out of the ball. And at 6'7", I mean, that definitely helps you create your own shot here in the Big Ten.
Yes. For sure. For sure. All right, who's your number 3 then?
Oh, yeah, my number 3. Now, my number 3 would be Jeremy Fears. But I don't think he stands to play much, as just Michigan State's backcourt is ridiculous.
That was my same reason for leaving him off.
Yeah, he would be number 3 for me.
Yeah.
But so here is where I'm going to take Xavier Booker. Now, Xavier Booker, he's one of those brats. Yeah, I said it, Michigan State. He's one of those brats who played ball here, who is from Indiana,
right?
Playing for Michigan State. What's wrong with him? I don't get it. But yeah, like you said, this kid is incredible. He is. Yeah. He's an incredible talent, and the only thing is the size. I mean, I saw Malik Renew last season have incredible footwork in the paint, incredible touch with the ball. But when Big Ten play hits, I mean, Big Ten play freaking hits. Like, it's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, and that's going to be an adjustment for him. So, which, Michigan State, they've had good bigs. Like Joey Hauser last year, he was a good kind of big man for him to do what they needed to do. But you're right, he didn't exactly hold up. I shouldn't say hold up. I feel like I'm insulting the guy. I'm not trying to insult.
No.
He's not a Khalil Ware. He's not a Zach Edey. He's not some of these big body guys that can really take the punishment. So, all right, my number 3 is Deshaun Harris Smith from Maryland. Just a beautiful offensive game. So smooth. I really like that he is one of those guys who he can get the defensive rebound and then just take it all the way down to the other side of the court. I don't know if I've seen a Maryland player be able to do something like that lately. Of course, Maryland is one of those teams I probably know less about than some other teams, but I just really, really like his game. I feel like he is going to fit in really well with Jameer Young. I feel like that's a good offensive piece for him to have. I feel like that was kind of Jameer Young's problem last year, is he didn't really have another offensive piece to really kind of take away some of the defense toward him. And I think Deshaun Harris-Smith is going to be one of those guys. So, all right, let me do my number 2, and then we'll go back to you, Burke. My number 2 is actually Scotty Middleton from Ohio State. And the reason why I have him a bit higher, I don't know if he's the best talent, but the reason why I have him a bit higher is because if you followed Ohio State, Chris Holtmann has been trying to get these like 3-and-D white boys who are guards and short and like, it just doesn't really work out for him. Justin Arms was a couple years ago. Sean McNeil was last year, and Sean McNeil was fabulous player. Okay, I'm not trying to take away anything from him, but he just didn't have that length to be able to play defense the way he needed to. And you pointed it out perfectly, is that Scotty Middleton has that length where he's going to be able to get his shot off even with a defender in his face, and then he's going to be able to come back down on the other end and play defense. So I think it's going to be huge for Ohio State's defense. Ohio State, they brought in an assistant coach from the Celtics to help shore up their defense. And so I think it's going to be a really, really good addition to the team, and he's going to impact them really well. Again, I don't think he's the best talent out there, but I think he's going to make a really, really good impact. So
I think he's going to provide something that they desperately could have used this year in being able to go to somebody. Just their inconsistencies screamed in, like, we need one other guy.
Yes. Well, and that was the thing too, is some of the older guys, they weren't able to do what was required. Normally in those times you give it to the veteran, and the veteran has that calm presence to be able to do those things. I love Justin Sewing. He just wasn't that last year. Yeah. Zed Key was, but of course Zed Key got hurt, and then even when he came back from injury, he wasn't quite the same player. So, all right, your number 2, Burke.
My number 2, Deshaun Harris-Smith.
There you go.
Freshman with hyphenated names, Chifino, ball. And, it seems like by all measure out there, I know they did their tour, he seems to immediately have gotten in there and is making a difference, knows his role as second. He's going to be the second go-to guy, I imagine.
Yeah.
Again, Jameer Young is going to demand enough attention that there are going to be plenty of opportunities to play off that.
Yeah, I've been hearing kind of the same stuff, is like the dude came in and he was like the immediate 2-man, maybe not the second best player on the team, but
it's Jameer's team. Yeah.
Right. On offense at the very least. So,
yeah.
All right. I can only guess who your first one is.
Of course, dude. Yeah, of course. It's the Duke Blue Devil decommit who we beat out Kansas for. That's it. It's Mbako. This kid, his size, he needs to work on the shot. I'll admit that, folks. I'll be objective here. He needs to find the shot. But even then, if the shot isn't falling, it seems like he can just bully his way to the rim. And I hope to God this guy is just a walking bucket.
Right. Well, he's going to need to be if he wants to leave right after this year.
Oh, so, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Mine was Mackenzie Mbako as well. I just put on there that, kind of the same thing you were saying, that I hope the shooting translates for him and he's able to do that. But even if it doesn't, like, this guy, he's not Scotty Middleton, where he's only kind of the 3 guy. I don't say Scotty Middleton's only 3, but he's more than just the 3 guy that Scotty Middleton is, to where if it's not translating behind the arc, he's going to be able to get down low and bully his way in there and get him the points that he needs to get. And even if that doesn't happen, he's still going to demand a lot of attention from the rest of the team, or the rest of the defense as well. It's going to provide time and space for Xavier Johnson. It's going to provide what the other players on his team need as well. And also, like, I take this into account too. Woody knows what he's doing with 3 and 4 men, right? He did it at the NBA level. He's doing it here at the college level. And so when I look at this league now, which, by the way, the Big Ten, with this freshman class coming in, is no longer a big man's league. Like, this is a forward kind of 3-4 league now with all these guys. I mean, all these guys we mentioned, minus Xavier Booker, I think is the only one. These are all 3-4 men. And this is the kind of league that it's turned into, which I think is better for the Big Ten person.
Which that's where the entire game's going.
Yes.
And like that, and hey, that's credit to us trying to get a run in March going.
Yeah.
It's like across the board.
It's like the coaches had a meeting and they were like, guys, can we stop recruiting 7-footers only?
Yeah.
Let's get some other guys in here who maybe, will have us not beat each other up so we can actually do something in the tournament.
Exactly. Here's hoping that Big Ten officiating can help out that a little this year. Yeah. I mean, they are doing us no favors there.
Right. So, all right, Burke, that's all I had, man. You have any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
No, yeah. Before I get out of here, I just wanted to talk about Xavier Johnson.
Okay.
So everyone sit and listen to me talk about Xavier Johnson because nobody else is. And I got to say, keep not talking about him, please. This kid runs on chips. I want his shoulders loaded.
Yep.
So please continue overshadowing the person who was like projected to be the best point guard in the Big Ten last year, who now has enough experience to have a doctorate in hoop.
Yeah.
And just thanks. That's my last closing thought on Xavier Johnson.
I will say, last year I was on a podcast before I started this podcast. I was on a podcast talking Big Ten basketball, and I told him, I said, hey, he's hurt this year, but next year, get ready. Xavier Johnson, best point guard in the Big Ten. Possibly. I didn't say he was the best, but possibly the best point guard in the Big Ten. He could come back next year and really provide a spark for Indiana. And I got laughed at. They were like, oh, Xavier
I love
Johnson,
it. I love
he's
it.
not the best. Give us Braden Smith. Give us Jameer Young. And I was like, guys, those guys are great players too. I'm not taking anything away from them. But Xavier Johnson has another level to him that I feel like if he can unlock that, then he's going to be the best point guard in the Big Ten in a lot of different ways. So I don't know. We'll see if he unlocks it. But
I just say it like this: he produces at a rate maybe slightly below Jameer and Boo, but he still produces. He still produces, and what he does on the defensive side is, I genuinely think he will remind Big Ten point guards how exhausting this game can be, because he picks you up the entire floor, and he just does not stop. And just here's hoping that foot recovered and he can just stay healthy throughout the season.
And I think that's the other thing too, is people need to remember, like, Woody did pick him. He was a part of that first transfer class that came in where Woody said, I need this guy in here. Some of the other guys, they transferred out or they graduated, but Xavier Johnson, he was one of those guys. So, all right. Well, hey, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Want to thank Burke for coming on and being my guest today. Like I said,
thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Tuesdays we will talk basketball. So I think next week I'm going to have somebody on from our Wild Chat. We'll talk Northwestern. So if you didn't hear enough about Boo Buie, you'll hear more about Boo Buie next time. Don't worry.
He pushed off Trey Galloway and won the game against us. So if you could ask them about that.
As long as you promise to listen, Burke.
Oh, I'll give you a listen.
Okay. All right. I'll ask about it. So please remember, we are brought to you by Big Banter Sports, bigbantersports.com. Go there, find them on Twitter, Instagram, all those different places. Tomorrow, we're going to have a Big Ten football preview with we're going to have Chris Wilds from the Ohio Pods, the Ohio State podcast. And then I'm super excited to have these guys on. Jordan Monk from the Turtleheads podcast. Dude has been ranking Maryland #1 in their power rankings all year long. And I heard his score prediction today. He legitimately thinks that Maryland is going to beat Ohio State. So
Hey, dude. He can do that until they lose. I mean, they haven't played anyone. I mean, of course, Ohio State has played tougher teams.
Right.
But
at least one tougher team.
Until someone shuts them up, like, they get to talk.
Right?
They do.
Dude, I'm the one that's been ranking Maryland 17th in the polls. I've been the one that's like, this is actually a good team, people. So I can't blame them. I think they are a really good team. I think they are top 25 worthy. But we'll see. And I know
if Indiana was 5-0, we wouldn't shut up about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's all being part of a fan, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, be sure to tune in for that one. Thanks so much for listening again. See you later. Have a great day.
No, thank you so much. Take it easy, guys.